Richard Tubb. He's a good friend and a great MSP business consultant out of the UK, and we get to work with them a lot out there, as well as Richard's made it a couple times over to Autotask Community Live. I'll tell you guys a little bit more about that a little bit later in the presentation. But guys, for today's agenda, I'm going to give you a brief Autotask overview, introduce you to our software a little bit, and then we're going to go into mistakes MSPs make and give you guys some education straight from Richard. Then we're going to go into the special offers, as I mentioned, and then we will have that Q&A session that I spoke about. But guys, if you got questions, put them in throughout. If we can get to them, we'd love to get to them. So guys, who is Autotask? And Autotask is the world's #1 provider of cloud-based IT business management software, born and built in the cloud, purpose-built since 2001 for managed service providers just like you guys. And what we're focused on is services automation. And we do that in a variety of ways, but what we do is take a bunch of different point solutions and we put them under one cloud and make sure that they're talking to each other. So we have a CRM built into our software for the sales and marketing parts of your business, project management, service desk, time and expense, contracts and billing. And guys, why is it important that all these point solutions are talking together? Well, if you're a service desk manager and you have some open tickets with one of your current clients, you wouldn't want your account manager calling in and trying to upsell them. So that you want to make sure that the CRM and the service desk are talking, as well as your project management, time and expense, contracts and billing. When all pieces of your business are talking, it makes for a much more fluid sales cycle with new and existing clients, and it makes it much easier for you to service those clients once you actually have them in. It's all about working better with your network, and your network's not just your LinkedIn connections, it's not your Facebook friends, it's the people that mean something to you in your business. So we do that with some ticket sharing within Autotask as a client access portal. This is going to allow you to communicate better with your clients, allow them to put in some information into their own tickets, open up their own tickets so that you're not wasting time with an admin or a dispatcher taking information over the phone. This is going to let your clients do that for you, and you can eliminate some of that double entry. Then there's Autotask Taskfire. This is going to help you collaborate with internal IT staffs. You're going to go in there and try and win a bigger deal, maybe in the health vertical or the legal vertical. They might have an internal IT staff who wants to keep you out because they view you as someone who's trying to take their job. In reality, you're just trying to make their life a little bit easier, give them some expertise in some areas that they might not have. So you're going to be able to collaborate with these internal IT staffs through Autotask Taskfire. It's going to be a great way to you break down some walls, get into some new verticals. There's universal outsourcing with our subcontractor portal, and of course the great online community of around 60,000 around the world, 70-plus countries, sharing best practices, sharing workflows, community.autotask.com. And guys, we like to say we can replace at least 5 different applications, but it's even more than that. It's just saving you time because that's your most precious resource, guys. So we're all focused about being open. We're a SaaS-based solution, and when we're a SaaS-based solution, and you're going to be able to access us over the Internet, we want to make sure that you can choose your browser of choice. So a few years ago, you might have checked in with us and we were only Internet Explorer. Well, we've made a heavy commitment of both time and money to the other browsers so that now you can access via Chrome, Firefox, Safari. And guys, to make that point even deeper, I don't even have Internet Explorer installed on my machine. I use Chrome for everything. And guys, once you're actually into our software, from the executive down to the admin level, there's going to be a different flavor, a different slice of Autotask for you, different dashboards that are going to be pertinent to your role. And once you're within Autotask, we like to say that we're open in the middle because we're going to have very customizable workflows and notification types that are going to allow you to set up Autotask around the way that you're already doing business, but just take a few of those steps out of your day, automate those steps, because you don't need to be sending 12 notification emails. You don't need to be doing that. We can set that up automatically for you. And you can see on the red line right there, those are some of the types of integrations we have. We have a very strong and open API. We made a strong commitment to making sure that the business applications that you're using every day that aren't a part of Autotask are going to be able to flow into Autotask. So if you're out there using a remote and monitoring tool, storage and backup, Outlook, Exchange, quoting, managed print, accounting, of course, because it's all about getting paid, guys, we want to make sure that that information is flowing out of Autotask and back into Autotask as seamless as possible. So we've got a heavy API that is really going to be strong for you guys out there. And you can see some of those components on the bottom there. Those are some of the things I already talked about, from CRM through community, all different pieces of Autotask. And we like to say at Autotask that it's going to help you become more sticky with your clients, more sticky with your prospects. And it's going to help you generate revenue across the 4 critical stages to securing a client for life. And it all starts in that sales and consulting role. You're out there, you're trying to win that one-time deal. You just met someone at a trade show, so now you got their contact information. You're putting it in our CRM. You're using accounts, contacts, quotes, because you want to know, you want to give them a perspective on what they're going to be paying you if you were to do some work for them. Then you start to put that in your pipeline, how many days till maybe this deal closes. Maybe you're communicating now with them through a group email on some marketing there. And then you won that one-time solution because you did a great job keeping up with them, checking in. So now all of a sudden you won that one-time solution. You're using projects. You're using a contract with them. You're looking at your resources, phases and tasks, time and expense and billing. You did a great job on that one-time solution. Now you want to build some predictability into your business. So you're trying to sell some recurring services to these guys. Maybe it's managed cloud and support. So now you want to build that predictability. Now you're using the service desk. You're using contracts of all different types. Maybe it's a retainer. Maybe it's a contract that has an SLA attached to it, tickets and alerts, time and expense and billing. And now, guys, we just hit 2013. It's crazy that we're already into February, but I remember just a few months ago we were building our budgets in. I know a lot of your clients were building their budgets as well, and if you've got some recurring services in there and you really understand their business, you understand their vertical, you can become that trusted advisor, that outsourced IT department, and all of a sudden now you're using the client access portal with them. They're putting in their own tickets in some cases. You're using TaskFire because these are larger guys. You're working with their internal IT staffs. You're actually using reports straight out of Autotask that are pre-canned, so you can show them that you're actually meeting the expectations of their SLAs and their expectations of their contracts. Using a survey, you spent a lot of time and money to get these clients on and to become that trusted advisor. Let's use surveys so that we can't have one bad day from a technician ruin that relationship. You're going to be able to catch things really quickly in real time. And then maybe you set up a knowledge base for these guys so they can do some self-healing, because at the end of the day, people like to self-heal. And now it goes right back to the beginning, because you became that trusted advisor. You're starting to build some projects for them into the next year, and you get right back in that sales and consulting role. And guys, that's my breakneck, quick speed through Autotask. And now I do want to turn it over and introduce Richard Tubb. Like I said, great MSP business consultant, straight from the UK. He's an Aston Villa fan, but we won't hold that against him. Here today to talk about mistakes MSPs make, the 5 most important mistakes IT managed service providers make that cost them time and money. And welcome, Richard Tubb. Welcome, Richard.
Thank you, Rich. That's really kind of you, mate. And yes, we won't talk about Aston Villa today at all. But look, I'm honoured that you guys have invited me to take part in the webinar, and I'm really, really excited that the news that Autotask Community Live is coming to Europe, across to Barcelona there. As you said earlier on, I've attended Autotask Community Live before. It's a great event, so we're so excited it's coming to Barcelona. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us today. A quick introduction to who I am. In a nutshell, I ran my own MSP business here in the UK, and I grew it from a one-man band until I sold the business at the end of 2010. I now work with IT companies who want to grow their business, and I help them to gain more clients and use their time more effectively. Now, quite often during the work with MSPs that I do, the question that seems to come up quite often is, well, Richard, if you could run an MSP again, what would you do differently? So really, the mistakes MSPs make here, and the ebook that I wrote is an answer to that question. It's, in my opinion, the 5 most important mistakes that IT managed service providers make that cost them time and money. And some of the big companies do it, some of the small companies, but without exception, the most successful MSPs I've come across avoid or overcome the mistakes that we're going to talk about in the webinar today. Now, it's an interactive webinar, so please do ask questions as we go through. And before moving between slides, I'll check in with Rich, and we'll answer any questions that come up as best as we can. Alternatively, feel free to drop me a tweet. I'm at Tublog, T-U-B-B-L-O-G, or at Autotask. Myself or Rich can answer those questions as we go forward. So let's move on. Mistake number 1. Not documenting client networks. And already I'm sensing there's some people on the webinar are holding their head in their hands or shaking their head knowingly. But basically, not documenting your client network is, in my opinion, the biggest mistake that any MSP can make. Now, when I started my business I was primarily a technician. No two ways about it. I focused on solving client problems above all else. And while doing that, I accumulated a lot of information about my clients. And quite frankly, all of it sat in my head, which meant that when I was taking on engineers as the business grew, even if I wanted to delegate anything, I became a bottleneck there. And worse, and quite honestly, if I was knocked over by a bus, even if I wasn't killed, my business was absolutely dead in the water. I was basically a single point of failure for the business. So the transformative moment for me was when I read the book, The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber. Some of you might be familiar with this book. If you're not familiar, I've put the link on screen there for you to go and find out more about it. It's a phenomenal book. It's a life-changing book for me. I really encourage you to go ahead and read it. I mean, I refer the book to some people now as the Bible for managed service providers. In a nutshell, the basic premise of the book is that you need to stop working in your business and start working on your business. So for MSPs, that means documenting your client network so that the business isn't just about what's in your head. You're basically building up a manual to run the business. So as your business grows, this is going to be a challenge. It was a challenge for me when I was a one-man band. It was a challenge as my business grew and I took engineers on. So you take engineers on, and what happens is key technicians then start doing work for clients, and they build up their own knowledge about those clients. And again, they keep it all in their head. What happens there is key technicians either become indispensable, and as a business owner, that means expensive, or actually they become really, really overworked. So what you need to do throughout your business growth is document your client networks. You'll also be able to build a scalable business by documenting your client networks. And the question that comes up more often than not is, well, I'm too busy doing stuff. I'm too busy doing the work for clients to actually start documenting client networks. My answer to this is you really need to break that cycle of firefighting and document the very basics. In the ebook that we'll talk about a little bit later, I actually list some really simple documentation tips on the essential information to capture, things like domain names, domain administrators and passwords, website details. This is the stuff that is essential really for you to help your clients out. And if you can document this information, you're going to be stealing a march on your competitors really. But how do you go about it? How do you make the time for it? Well, there's no magic formula, I'm afraid. The real answer here is to slow down, do the job properly, and document things as you go along. Just try it with the next ticket that comes up when you get into the office tomorrow morning if you're a technician. Slow down, document what you're doing properly, and then the next time you need to visit that client, you're going to have the basics of that documentation in place. Over time, you start to build it up, and you start to build a business as opposed to owning a job. So, Rich, how are we doing for questions there?
We're doing good right now. Just people asking about if the slides will be available and with the recording and such. And I actually gave a wrong link because I typed tubb.co. So, guys, that link to Richard's book and everything like that, the new link is in there, as well as today's webinar is being recorded, like I mentioned. Subscribe to us on YouTube. I'll drop that link in there for everyone, and that will be the way that you guys will find out when the recording is actually available. But otherwise, Richard, keep it up.
Thanks. Right. Okay, so moving on to mistake number 2. And before I move on to the slides, one of the questions that comes up about documenting client networks is, okay, where do I document the client networks? Where do I store this information? So moving swiftly on to slide number 2, a PSA tool, professional services automation tool. MSPs who don't use a professional services automation tool inevitably, I say that, in my experience, hit a roadblock. It's almost as though the business is a horse and cart and they're going faster and faster and faster, and you're just waiting for the wheels to come off that cart and come crashing to a halt. Not using a PSA tool really cripples your business. And I'm not saying this as a pitch for Autotask or any other PSA. I'm saying this from the perspective I've worked with a lot of MSPs in the UK, Europe, and further afield. Without fail, all those MSPs start to grow their business when they start using a PSA tool. So what's the benefit of using a PSA tool, and why couldn't you live without it? Well, if you try to document your business using Post-it notes or Post-it stickies or handwritten notes, and I can almost feel some people nodding their heads here, emails within Outlook to your client, anything else like that, you're setting yourself up for a fall because you're not capturing the information that's really important to your business. So getting hold of that info as your business grows will become more and more difficult as your business grows if you're not using a PSA tool. And I should add at this point, I've come across a lot of MSPs who think that, okay, I don't need a PSA tool, I can build a CRM tool, an off-the-shelf CRM tool, and I can modify it for my purposes. Or even I can use SharePoint, and I can build that to replace a PSA tool. If you're somebody who thinks that you can build a CRM or a SharePoint system to replace a PSA, then quite frankly, I'd encourage you to give up being an MSP and become a CRM or a SharePoint sales company. It's that simple. Simply put, the guys who build these PSA systems, such as Autotask, have been there, they've done that, and they've built a system from the ground up that will meet your needs. As I said, this isn't the sales pitch for Autotask. This is, in my opinion, a simple fact of running an MSP. Once you've got a PSA tool in place, you can make it almost your business operating system here. In other words, everything goes into it. Everything that you do within your business goes into that PSA tool. It becomes the central repository of all the information. So every interaction that you have with clients can be within the PSA tool. So no longer will you come across that situation where either yourself or one of your engineers has spoken to a client and the other engineers or the other people within the business don't know about it, or you've done a piece of work for a client and forgot to bill it. The PSA tool really is just the central point where everything goes in. It makes you more organized. It makes you more profitable. If you've got other MSP tools within your business already, such as RMM tools or quoting tools, they can integrate with your PSA tool as well. Again, all roads lead to the PSA tool. Make it into your business operating system. Once you start doing this, as your business grows, you can start benefiting from what I would term service intelligence. What this means is, okay, let's say, for instance, you're recording all of the work that you're doing on a client project. Well, how do you know whether that client project is profitable or not? The example that I always give is, back in the day for myself, rolling out a small business server to a client. I would quote them a certain amount of time. We would go and deliver the work, and then at the end of it, we'd say, okay, the client's paid the bill, that's profitable. But is it? What about if one of my engineers spent 3 or 4 days working on that project and didn't record the time? I still think it's profitable, but really that engineer is not doing billable work elsewhere. If you're recording all the time within a PSA system, at the end of the project, you can run a report and you can say, hey, we quoted for this amount of time, we actually spent this amount of time. So you know whether the job is profitable or not. And the next project that you undertake, you can adjust your quotation or your proposal accordingly. Other things that come into play with service intelligence. You've got a managed service contract with the client. You've got a rough idea, a gut feeling of how much time you're spending with that client, but are they really profitable? Well, with a PSA tool and service intelligence, you're going to be able to bring up the figures in black and white, no longer gut feeling. There's an old phrase, what can be measured can be managed. A PSA tool allows you to measure and manage those things accordingly. So you could have an MSP contract. Actually, you're spending a huge amount of time working for that client on lots of niggling issues. They turn out not to be profitable. Well, you can do one or two things now that you've got that service intelligence. You can go back to the client and you can say, hey, look, this isn't working out for us. We need to charge you more. Or you can look at the type of issues that are coming up and you can actually do a little bit of work there to try and reduce those issues. So service intelligence is something you may not have heard of before. It's going to become really important to MSPs across the world as we move forward. How are we doing for questions there, Rich? I can see a couple that have come up.
Well, we actually had a question. We had someone just asking what PSA stands for, so I answered that for him. It's Professional Services Automation, guys, and there's so many acronyms out there right now that definitely understand not knowing what PSA stands for, especially